Bookworm ka ba? Yung tipong isang libro lang dapat ang bibilhin mo, pero umuuwi kang may tatlo? Yung sinasabing, last chapter na to, pero alas 2 na pala ng umaga. Well, this one's for you. Welcome to Bookworm2BOOKWORM, a new segment of Ang Sarap Pala Magbasa, where I get to sit down with fellow bookworms, readers, authors, and people who share one thing in common: the love for books. Dito, pag-uusapan natin ang mga librong nagmarka sa atin, ang mga kwentong hindi natin makalimutan, at higit sa lahat, kung paano binago ng pagbabasa ang buhay natin. Because sometimes, the best conversations about books are conversations between bookworms. So bookworm to bookworm, anong binabasa mo? I'm Tessa Saavedra, and welcome to Bookworm to Bookworm. Only here on isang pahina, isang kwento, isang aral. Ang sarap pala magbasa. Hello mga ka-bookworms! Once again, I'm Tessa Saavedra and welcome back to Ang Sarap Pala Magbasa, the podcast where we celebrate books, the people who love them, and the stories that bring us together. Being a podcaster who chose books as the heart of my content, I won't lie, it hasn't always been an easy journey. Book content isn't exactly the easiest niche to grow. There are moments when you wonder if anyone is even listening or if all the hours spent reading, writing, recording, and editing are even worth it. But one thing I've realized is this: once you become part of the reading community, you realize that you're part of something special. You meet people from different walks of life who may have different stories, careers, and backgrounds, but are united by one thing: a love for books. And every once in a while, you come across someone whose passion for reading inspires not just their own community, but countless others as well. And that's exactly what inspired me to create something new here on Ang Sarap Pala Magbasa. Welcome to my brand new segment, Bookworm to Bookworm. Because sometimes the best conversations about books are the ones we have with people who love them just as much as we do. And for me, this episode is extra special because this is not only my first episode of Bookworm to Bookworm, it's also my very first collaboration here on the podcast. For our first episode, I'm excited to welcome a fellow book lover who has been championing reading for years through her page, Scribbles and Books. We're going to talk about her own reading journey, the story behind Scribbles and Books, what it's like to build a community around books, and the lessons she's learned along the way. So ladies and gentlemen, mga ka-bookworms, it's all welcome, Miss MJ Ampolitod-Busa. Woohoo!
Everyone, thank you, Tessa, for having me here in your awesome podcast.
Okay, so to kickstart the show, for those who may be meeting you for the first time, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how Scribbles and Books began?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi, I am MJ, or my complete name is actually Mary Judd Busa. I am from Cebu, Philippines, and I'm also a mom to a 3-year-old as of this recording. So,
Wow.
my journey with Scribbles and Books actually started in a really parang unexpected way kasi initially my page was called Scribbles and Everything Nice. So I started the page around when I was in the university, where I used to sell parang journals or cute notebooks to my classmates. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then around 2017, 2018, I decided to reuse the page and then put there all my book reviews. So I
Mhm.
didn't have anybody paying attention to my book reviews yet. Basically, what I intended for it to be for the page is really just to become like a diary for all the books that I've read.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Mhm.
yun, tapos, what happened was that was on the Facebook app, and then I shifted to Instagram. I used to also keep a blog about my books and my life in general. The Instagram part took off when I started posting, aesthetic flat lays where I would just take photos of my books nicely. So basically,
Mhm.
that's where people knew about Scribbles and Books, the Scribbles
Mhm.
and Books that they know now. So basically it's really pure chance, also the hard work and effort I put into all of my posts which is purely for my own pleasure. Like it's not even, oh, I want people to appreciate this, to like this one, or I want to meet people who are like-minded. Basically, that's that too, but the main idea, the main gist of Scribbles and Books is purely for my personal
Mhm.
enjoyment. Parang ganon siya. So,
Mhm.
yeah, and then that's that.
That's interesting. That's actually quite conscious to my wanting to start doing my own podcast or book review podcast. Do you remember when you started uploading or posting on your pages? Mga ilang taon na kaya? Natatandaan mo pa ba?
I would say that the official start of Scribbles and Books would be around 2023, 2024, I would say.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
You know what? Ako rin. I think I also started roughly around the same time. Pero alam mo, honestly, reading is something kasi that I would not look forward to. I would read out of obligation. And because of the course that I took, nursing, required talaga kami magbasa. Because if we don't read, mahuhuli ka. So, it was, I would do it out of obligation and I didn't really find it fun to do until the pandemic when I hit a rough patch. I was going through so many things and I was seeking so many answers to my many questions. And that's when I unexpectedly found comfort in the pages of books. So, Ang Sarap Pala Magbasa is more than just the name of this podcast. It's actually a realization. So, I'd like to ask you, when did you first realize na Ang Sarap Pala Magbasa?
I think it would be parang nung I was still a bit younger. I remember I was in grade 5 and I
Mhm.
studied in a public school. It's a central school because we are actually hindi naman kami mayaman to enroll in a private school. So
Mhm.
basically books were luxury for us. I didn't even have the typical childhood books na maraming tao yung nagsasabi na, oh, have you read parang Harry Potter or Chronicles of Narnia? I didn't have those growing up. So, just for context. So, when I was in the public school, grade 5, every time it's lunchtime, we had kasi a mini library. So what I mean with mini library is it's just a simple shelf na may mga kaunting books doon. And I would remember I spending my lunch in that specific corner sa classroom namin. And I would read Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. So it was
Mhm.
an illustrated copy of it. It was worn na siya na copy, and I would just read and read there. So it was super fun, and that's when I realized now, okay, books are super fun to read.
Fun,
So
yeah. Mhm.
yeah, it was also during those times when Witch comics was really popular. So parang
Mhm.
WITCH. Um so my classmate would bring a new edition of the Witch magazine, the latest one, and then we would all share it a classroom. So that was very fond memories of my love for reading. Yeah.
That's really interesting to hear. That's actually one of the classics, Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol. Pero alam mo, if I'm gonna share, the book that really made me addicted to reading books, or the one that started it all for me, is The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. It's actually a book na minensyon ni Pia Wurtzbach in one of her interviews, and since I'm a very big fan of hers and I admire her so much, syempre na-curious ako. So, ayun, the rest is history. So speaking of The Secret, it's actually about law of attraction and manifestation. So in your case, did you ever manifest yung magiging success ng Scribbles and Books?
To be honest, I'm not really. So I think it
Mhm.
was super surprising for me one night. I was just in bed with my husband. We were about to go to sleep, and then
Mhm.
or out of nowhere, I'm starting to get like 100 followers and then another 100 followers after a few minutes. So there was one reel I posted by accident. Hindi naman siya accident, but it's more like very spontaneous. Sabi ko, okay, if you, hi, I'm MJ from Cebu, and then these are the things that I like. So I placed there Frederick Backman,
Mhm.
Dostoevsky, Dark
Mhm.
Academia, walking, drinking coffee. And then that
Mhm.
reel alone got me 10,000 followers in overnight. I mean, like,
Talagang yun yung talagang nag-start ng lahat.
oo, dun talaga siya nag-start.
Wow.
So I'm like,
Mm-mm.
I have no idea what I was doing. Even now, there's a lot of things I'm doing na I have no
Mhm.
idea. Kaya nga nasa-surprise ako na, suddenly
Mm-mm.
bashers are popping up and then they'll be like, oh, this and that, ba't mo I have no idea
Mm-mm.
too.
Pero 'di ba nga sabi nila if you're getting bashers, actually means that you're doing something right.
Oh, yeah. So parang gano'n. And then, I don't take things too seriously with this a passion of mine kasi all I really crave for is looking for stories that parang understands me or parang understand me. Parang ganun. Like I wanna discover literature that describes how I feel because I struggle to describe my own feelings. So that's something
Mm.
important to me. So other people read for the sake of parang escapism, 'di ba? Like they
Yeah.
want to have like new worlds, discover new worlds and experiences. But for me, it's more like the feeling of finding a quote or a line from a book nobody told me to read just by my own intrinsic motivation or my own
Mm-mm.
passion. And then there goes a line. Finally, someone understands what I'm going through. And I
Mm-mm.
underline it, I copy it on my notebook. That for me is the reason why I'm doing all these talaga. Mm-mm.
Okay. So my next question is actually related to that. How do you choose which books to feature or recommend?
That one, right? I don't have any kind of plan or I don't have any kind of structure to my posts. So
Mm.
kasi my schedule sa buhay ko as a full-time mom kasi I'm a full-time
Mm.
mom and my schedule depends on yeah, my schedule depends on actually my baby. So
Mm.
I would try to find pockets of time where I can read, and then so I just go by instinct. I just go by
Mm.
my mood. So I'm the worst person to be in a book club kasi sometimes when a book club chooses a book, even my own book club, when a book club chooses a book and then I decide na okay, I'm not in the mood for this one. So
Yeah.
I struggle with it. Parang
Oo
ganun. So
nga
how do I
naman.
choose?
Oo.
So basically, I
Mm.
go by my mood and then I also go
Mm.
by the plot. So I usually
Mhm.
read the back part parang may plot doon, 'di ba? Sabi ko, okay, this is interesting. So yeah, and then if I read the first few pages and I find it exciting or something that interests me, I would go read it in one sitting. But if I find somehow I get bored, I just park
Mm.
it. Yeah. So
Totoo, ganyan.
park lang. Mm-mm.
It happens nga talaga 'no, like even if sometimes kasi 'di ba you read it kasi parang recommended kasi parang ano kasi siya bestseller ta's ang daming nagre-rave about it. Pero pag nabasa mo ng first few chapters parang hindi naman siya nagre-resonate sa'kin, mamaya na lang 'to.
Correct.
Next book.
Yeah.
Thank you next na lang sa book.
Correct. Thank you. Next.
Thank you
True.
next. So my next question is, what are some of the biggest challenges you've experienced as a book content creator?
Me, I
Oo.
think sa mga challenges, siguro I'd pick at least two. So the first one of the challenges I'm facing right now is that urge or that desire, parang desperate urge to perform in front of the camera. What I mean to say is like I have this expectation on myself na dapat yung
Mhm.
presentation ko ng book is understandable, humorous, parang it should be
Resonate with the
accepted by
readers.
accepted by
Yeah.
the audience. So it's
Mm.
pretty much like what I think the audience should enjoy. Parang that's one of the hurdles that I've come across in my content creation journey. And then I'm starting to parang overcome that mindset na I have to please, the audience. Kasi nga, this is just purely for my own pleasure, the one
Mm.
I mentioned earlier on. So I'm trying to veer away from that mindset. And that's the reason why I'm content with, filming videos na walang ayos, parang walang makeup, just
Mm.
randomly talking about it. And sometimes I even cry in front of it. It's like raw emotions
Yeah.
now while I'm reading it. And then people think, oh, it's very cringy. But to me, in that moment, it's not because it's actually the emotion I felt while reading a book. So I
Mm.
think for me, that's authenticity.
Mm.
uh, yeah, so I might say it's cringe too after a few days, like, oh my
Yeah.
god, why did I even do that? But
Mm.
I think it's also part of the content creation, right? Like you have to
Mm.
really lean into your discomfort and do things that you don't normally do.
Mm.
As long as it's not, you're not going away from who you truly are. Parang
Mm.
ganon. Like you're not
Mm.
creating a fake persona. So I'm very mindful of that. I'm
Mm.
very mindful of not losing touch with who I truly am. So parang I don't force myself to be the giddy person or like the very joyful, happy, humorous. Kasi hindi naman talaga ako ganun. Like I'm
Mhm.
very pensive, I'm solemn, and then I'm
Mm.
boring ko talaga na pagkatao.
Mm.
I mean, if that's
Hindi
me, then
naman.
I shouldn't change it, right?
Oo. I mean, the very reason why content creators like Alex Gonzaga and Zainab Harake blew up is because ano sila, very natural sila. They're not trying to pretend to be someone else. And I think yung ganung klaseng personality nila is what really resonated with their viewers. And I think that's something that I should also, ako rin, I myself should also learn para mas mag-resonate yung content ko with the viewers. In our case, medyo mahirap kasi nga books siya. It's something that not all people can relate to. So, ayun, I guess tama yung sinabi mo. Kailangan authentic lang. You should be true to yourself. Kasi nahahalata kasi ng audience then if you're not being true to yourself eh. So, up next, how do you think the Filipino reading community has changed over the years?
I think that I'm actually kasi I recently just got parang immersed sa Filipino reading community. Not when I started my audience is international. A lot of my followers are from India,
Mhm.
US. Tapos active ako sa Filipino reading community because I kind of set a challenge for myself to read more Filipino books. And then I started getting in touch with parang rare Filipiniana books and then current parang prints or parang recently published books, and then I get to talk to authors and authors also messaged me. So my comparison for what has changed might not be very timely, but what I noticed is that a lot of the Filipino reading community that I'm exposed to, kasi hindi naman ako active sa BookTok, so I don't know what's going on there. But in terms of the literary um, environment that I'm currently immersed in, marami palang Filipinos who are parang
As well.
looking for stories by Filipino writers, and they are hungry for it. That's what I noticed. So
Mhm.
whenever I come across a book, sabi ko, this is very interesting. So I'll give you an example. So one of
Mhm.
the books I've read recently is mixing philosophy and OPM. So
Mm.
this was published
Mhm.
by Ateneo de Naga University Press. It's a very interesting book. So when
Mhm.
you start reading it, you have a QR code and then you scan it, you listen to the OPM. Like let's say for example, Isa Sigera, music, pagdating ng panahon for example. And then at the chapter opening, you get to dissect the lyrics in terms of, for example, your concept of panahon, the theory behind it, the
Mhm.
philosophy behind it, and uses really theories from you know philosophers. So wow, I mean, like, this is pretty interesting. So I talked about it,
Mhm.
didn't get a lot of likes, but I did get a lot of comments saying, "Oh, I'm gonna get a copy of it. It's just so amazing that there's a book like this." Parang ganon. Like,
Oo nga
the
naman, oo.
yeah.
What's the title of
Mm.
the book?
Um, let me see. Let me just pull it out from my account, but it's published by Ateneo Dinaga University Press. Yeah.
Sana yun na lang binili ko.
Oh, that was very
Oo.
cool. Grabe.
Oo.
You get to feel nostalgia kasi the OPM part. See,
Mhm.
I love music kasi din.
Kasi sometimes
Right.
talaga when you, pick up books sa mga bookstore, parang sometimes it's a gamble. Even if the plot was written maganda naman, interesting naman, parang when you start reading it na parang hindi mo rin naman gusto. Oo. Parang
Yeah,
may
here is
gano'n
the title
feeling.
is Pilosophia OPM Pag-ibig. That's the
Wow, oo.
title. Yeah.
Okay. I'll look into that. Kasi naghahanap din ako
Mhm.
ng next i-fe-feature.
So beautiful. I think
Yeah,
if
thank
you
you.
ask me siguro about like fantasy or romantasy, parang wala talaga akong masyadong input
Totoo.
sa
Mm,
genre na 'yon.
mm.
But I do have some favorites like I like Catherine Arden, parang ng author ng Winter Night Trilogy,
Mhm.
yung Bear and the Nightingale. And then if Filipino naman na setting, I did enjoy reading The Hurricane Wars by Thea Guanzon. So I love how rich Filipino literature is, to be honest. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I did buy that. Pero oo, naka-park lang siya.
Mm.
Sige, I will start reading that. Oo nga. So, one of my goals really for creating my podcast is to encourage more people to read. Um, but I'm also surprised to find out that even those who are avid readers before, lalo na nung bata pa sila, kahit sila nahihirapan ko i-convince na magbasa ulit. So, what do you think is stopping more Filipinos from reading regularly?
I think if you are really obsessed with one thing, you would find the
Mhm.
time for it, no? Parang kasi I think we Filipinos are very used to parang soap operas or
Yeah.
something that
Mm.
elicits very big emotions like maybe crying,
It's like
anger,
family
joy,
cultures, yan.
like
Mm.
parang happiness or excitement, kilig. But a
Mm.
lot of literature really doesn't have that. I
That,
mean, that's not
oo.
something wrong. It is not something wrong. It's really just what we were exposed to
Yeah.
most of our time. So that's what we're seeking for in stories. But a lot of beautiful stories out there, especially in Filipino literature, may not have that necessarily, but they're still beautiful nonetheless. So I think if I were to encourage more Filipino readers to try and dip their toes or even immerse themselves in sa Filipino literature. I
Mm.
think it's a high time now to go into that, not necessarily for the sake of the enjoyment, but rather to
Mm.
feel Filipino again.
Mm.
Um Parang ganun lang. I think it's that mindset lang siguro na tangkilikin ang sariling atin
Atin,
kumbaga.
yeah. Mm. Gusto ko yan tangkilikin ang sariling atin. Pero most people I know, kapag tinatanong ko sila kung bakit ayaw nila magbasa is that they find it boring or overwhelming even kasi puro text, ganyan. But if you could change one misconception about reading, what would it be?
I think one of the misconceptions about reading is that it should make you smarter. Like, it's one of the misconceptions. The reason why is that for me, reading is supposed to make you feel human. It's a celebration for humanity, it's a celebration
Oo.
for creating something out of nothing, using words and challenging the rules of the language to describe a difficult emotion that hasn't been described before.
Mm.
So, it doesn't necessarily make someone smart. Kasi yun yung expectation, di ba? If you are
Yeah.
reading, you're smart. If you're reading, you're a nerd. If you're reading, you should be someone who has high intellect. But it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean that. So,
Mm.
I think that's one of the things I would like to challenge. Kaya, magbasa na kayo, guys.
Oo, yes. Magbasa na
Yeah.
kayo, please. Alam mo, reading for me talaga was really, truly life-changing. And you not only gain knowledge from the various insights na sinasabi ng mga author, pero you also learn so many things about yourself, the people around you, and the entire world. So, ganun siya ka-powerful. Ganun siya. Yung isa sa mga benefits ng pagbabasa na hindi ko ine-expect. So, if someone told you, I want to start reading again but I don't know where to begin, what books would you recommend?
Well, I would always recommend Letters to a Young Poet by Rainier Maria Rilke. It's
Mm-hmm.
parang a series of letters in exchange ng letters nila. He's a poet, by the way, and he was kind of like giving advice to this young writer kung ano yung dapat gawin, ano yung parang magandang isulat. Parang it's a very short book, and it's one of my highly recommended reads for someone who would love to start reading again
Reading.
kasi it
Mm-mm.
tells the reader to love the questions themselves rather than obsessing over finding the answer or obsessing over the answer.
That's so deep.
So,
And it's so
it's really
interesting. Oo.
deep.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so that's one. And then the second one is since I'm into parang cozy literature also, I would like
Mm-mm.
to recommend the latest book that I have also finished. I think it was called The Midnight Pastry Shop at Wawaldang.
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
Midnight Pastry Shop called Wawaldang. So by Lee Onwa. So this was a really unexpectedly delightful book about being able to open a shop for pastries, but it's
Mhm.
for the souls to
Mhm.
find peace. So it was a really interesting book because the main character didn't know what was in store for her. Everything wasn't spoon fed. She had to figure out the hard way. And
Mhm.
then it's funny, but it's also really sad. I used to recommend before the coffee gets cold, but I struggled with the
Yeah.
translation a little bit. It felt a bit dry, but this particular book felt
Mhm.
more fun and engaging to read. And then the last one that I would recommend is, of course, a Filipino book. It would
Mhm.
be Buhay at Banyuhay, Mga Kwentong May Kwenta. This is by Xiao Chua, one of our
Xiao.
Filipino historians. Yeah,
Yeah.
historians.
Mhm.
So, it's
Historian.
very
Mhm.
fun to read kasi para siyang nagtiti ka lang with your bestie na, "Uy, alam mo ba yung Philippine flag, ano talagang kulay ng pagka-blue nun?" Parang gano'n, like,
Mm.
it
Like
gives
you're
you
talking to a
insight.
friend, oo. Mhm.
Yeah, it's like
Mhm.
giving you insights of Filipino history that many
But
people forgot
it
already.
yeah,
La
it's
yeah.
also not very overwhelming then for the reader,
Hmm.
parang oo, maganda siya to start. Mm.
Yeah, I think start with those three. Those are very interesting reads that will make you realize, oh, reading is fun pala. It doesn't have to be parang
Oh,
boring.
or
Or if it's
yeah.
boring, you should
Mm.
embrace the boredom, right? Like,
Oo.
Yeah, I'm really loving your recommendations so far, ha. Ang dami ko ng pwedeng ilista sa aking book bucket list. But that being said, which book has challenged your perspective the most?
I have two, I would say. So the first one is The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. So isa yun sa mga books na kahit gaano mo kailang beses mong binabasa, marami ka pa ring perspective na hindi mo nare-realize sa current reading mo
Mm.
na ng book na yun. So every time you reread it, there's something new that pops up that you haven't
Yes, oo.
realized before. So
Mm.
isa yun. And then the second one, surprisingly, this one is called The Anatomy of Melancholy by Robert Burton. Ito yung
Mhm.
actually na nabasa ko ngayon. Binabasa ko ngayon, but it's something that I would want to read again for the first time kasi
Mm.
napaka-entertaining na book niya. It's very thick.
Mm.
It's very, very hefty book. But each page, grabe, hindi ka talaga nabobored. I mean, you don't read it in one sitting. It's not the kind of book that you read in one sitting. It's kind of like a library that you go into and you dive deep a little bit and then you
Mhm.
come back the next day. Parang ganun siya na type of
Mhm.
book kasi. So,
Mm.
it's so fun. Yeah.
Okay, so this is actually one of the questions na I'm very much looking forward to asking you. Is there a book you think everyone should read at least once in their lifetime?
I think it would be The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I think at least once you have to be stressed. Hindi. Joke lang. It's a book that's really packed with a lot of parang drama, my murder mystery, my parang philosophical ideas, my soulfulness to it. So it's something that I think people should read at least once in their life. Yeah.
Mhm. Oh.
Okay, so the next question that I'm also looking forward to asking you is what's next for Scribbles and Books?
Scribbles and Books, there's a few things that are lined up for the Scribbles and Books. So I would be in Manila for the National Bookstore event on, I think, August 15. So I would be one of the panelists that will talk about parang book content creation in the Philippines. And then I'm also going to Davao for the pen and stationery fest, which is very exciting.
Mhm.
I know that I would need a luggage for this because I'm also obsessed with stationery. So I'll be
Stationaries.
doing a
Mhm.
workshop there for annotation, for soulful
Mhm.
annotation workshop. And then the rest would be really partnering with publishers and talking more about books and discovering more titles. Yeah.
So, I think your annotation workshop is very interesting. So, if we have listeners out there who would want to join in, paano sila makakasali?
Okay, yes. So my annotation workshop is very exclusive for now. So usually I run very small batches of it,
Mhm.
but I would announce it in my social media pages on Instagram or on Facebook. So kasi usually I only accept parang 4 to 6 people for the annotation workshop. It's very ano kasi intimate. It has a lot of positive psychology to it. It's got a lot of processing, like what makes it difficult for you to overcome your perfectionism, parang ganun. So I would use my expertise in positive psychology since I'm also a certified positive psychology practitioner. So that's what makes the workshop really special and intimate. So if you are excited
Interesting.
or interested, yeah, you can just check my page on Instagram or on Facebook for some announcements. Yeah.
Okay.
My next question would be, are there any dream projects or collaborations you'd love to pursue? Because I think you have one with Huang Borun, and
Oh yeah.
I recently also read Every Day I Read.
Oh, nice book. Yeah.
Nice book. So what else aside from any dream
Well,
collaborations?
actually, to be honest, I don't have any parang dream collaboration. I just want to receive books. Like, send me
Um,
books, parang ganun, no? Like,
mhm.
as much as possible, I would like to not treat this as work. Parang ganun. Like, I would want
Mhm.
this to just purely be out of my
Like a
enjoyment.
hobby.
Parang ganun.
Mhm.
Yeah, hobby. So,
Yeah,
I'll
hobby.
give you an example. I don't want payment for my book reviews. So, I'm also very
Mhm.
transparent with the people who want to send me books. Like they message me, "Oh, Miss MJ, can I send you books?" And I said,
Mhm.
I'm a mood reader, just to let you know. So I might not be able to read your book right away. Do you need specific date for this or something like that?" So
Mhm.
sometimes I also say, currently marami pa akong binabasa ngayon. So is it okay if you message me again around this time? Parang ganun. So
Mhm.
I don't want to impose things on myself na it will make me feel like I'm working. Kasi again, I'm doing this for my passion, di ba? Like
Passion.
hobby.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So we're not the typical influencer kasi when lifestyle parang you're promoting like a product, parang ganun.
Mhm.
Ours is more like the love for reading talaga, right?
Reading
Like
talaga.
even though we don't earn from it,
Wala
ang laki
talaga.
ng gastos.
Ang laki ng gastos for creating a content. Yes.
True. True, true.
It's sad. Sabi nga ng nanay ko, "Oh, ano, may kinikita ka na ba diyan?" Sabi ko, "Naku, wala pa." Kasi for many years nasanay yung mga netizens in contents na that has something to do with lifestyle. Yeah, mga
Yeah.
yung binabalandra yung ano, ay binabalandra talaga eh. Pero yung parang pinapakita mo yung lifestyle mo, yung cars, yung ano. So syempre netizens have so gotten used to that. So it's really hard to break that mold. Parang
Correct.
mahirap, oo.
Mm.
Pero talaga this is really purely out of passion talaga.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's so good to finally meet you and talk to you kasi, di ba, this is something that we can both relate to as content creators. Pero, so if you could leave our listeners one message about reading, what would it be?
Yeah, so if the message is simple and clear, read
Mhm.
because we need our minds to always be actively learning.
Yes.
And read, yeah, that's that. So we
Mhm.
need to parang stimulate our minds
Mhm.
in a not brain rot way. So reading is the thing that helps that with that. So reading is a very solitary activity also. It's something that it's you and the book. And that's the
Mhm.
reason why annotation for me is like a bridge between me and what I'm reading. Because I get to also pen down my thoughts and participate in the reading process. So that's how I
Mhm.
see annotation. A lot of
Mhm.
people, especially those that don't agree with writing in books, I feel like they are looking at books as though it's like parang prized treasures. I used
Mhm.
to be like that kasi when I started the podcast interview, I also talked about a little bit about my background, right? That we don't have a lot of
Mhm.
money, parang books are luxury. So of course, I was somebody who make sure na walang crease, walang sulat yung mga libro ko. Suddenly, parang
Mhm.
yeah, may nangyari sa buhay ko na I really needed something to anchor my mind in. Otherwise, I'd fall into depression. So
Mhm.
I started to interact with the books more. I found it to be really a breath of fresh air kasi the books don't judge, right?
Mhm.
So it was fun. And then yeah, I started my love for annotation then. And yeah, I would recommend it to people as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's true. Nung hindi pa ako reader talaga, I also didn't like the idea of writing anything on the book or putting anything on it, like yung mga washi tapes or yung mga annotations, because parang feeling ko nabababo yung libro. But once I really started to get into reading and talagang na-enjoy ko na siya, doon ko na na-realize na kaya pala people are writing notes on the book is that they're really trying to get themselves really immersed in the stories at doon sa mga different passages ng mga book. So, ayun, ang dami ko na-realize sa pagbabasa na I really did not expect. I used to think that reading was really for gaining knowledge, but when I went through a very difficult time, I really found comfort in the pages of books, in the stories of other people who went through the same thing as I did. And because of this newfound love for reading and really realizing the benefits of it by creating this podcast, that's one realization that I hope to pass on to other people as well. Kasi iba talaga yung magic ng finding the right book that really understands you. It's really life-changing talaga.
So, ayun. Thank you, NJ, again. Sana I did a good job at interviewing you kasi first time ko lang talaga mag-collab. And
Thank you.
thank you so much. And I hope I didn't take you out of a very busy schedule. And send my regards to your baby and your husband. Hello. And
And that wraps up my very first episode of Bookworm to Bookworm, my new segment here on Ang Sarap Pala Magbasa. A huge thank you to MJ of Scribbles and Books for taking the time to share her story, her love for reading, and her passion for building a community where books bring people together. Maraming salamat sa pakikinig. Once again, I'm Tessa Saavedra. And join me again next time for another episode of Bookworm to Bookworm dito lang sa Isang Pahina, Isang Kwento, Isang Aral. Ang sarap pala magbasa.
bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Good night. Good evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Shut